Over recent years, the smartphone market has truly gotten more and more uninteresting. There are fewer and fewer great bang-for-the-buck options, and most enthusiast brands have turned their backs on their fans. Take OnePlus for example, previously the go-to for a great experience at an affordable price, and now just another expensive brand with mediocre devices. But one of the co-founders of just that OnePlus wasn't having that. And what's come out of it? Nothing. Okay, I will try to keep the puns to a minimum from now on. This is the Nothing Phone 1, the first phone from Carl Pei's new London startup. I've been using it for the past month, and boy was that time needed. This is my experience. The design of the Nothing Phone 1 is probably its biggest highlight feature. And yes, at first glance it does look like an iPhone. Same perfectly flat aluminum frame and glass panels. In fact, if you cover the top of the phone, the bottom half looks exactly like an iPhone, with the uniform bezels and the gesture bar at the bottom. Though of course there's only a small hole punch up top instead of a notch, and those uniform bezels are genuinely a standout at this price that make the phone not only look good, but also more premium than other phones for the same money. And of course, when flipping the phone over, all the iPhone similarities are gone. In fact, the reaction I got most often when pulling out this phone was, "That looks kinda like an iPhone, but what is with that back?" The design of the back really is truly unique and probably what makes this phone appealing to a lot of enthusiasts. Through the transparent glass you can see a lot of the actual components that make the phone work. Though of course they're stylized and painted to make the whole thing look more tidy. There are also some nice touches like the red recording light for the video mode. And the lights. Oh, the lights. The LED straps on the back, which Nothing calls the glyph, look really cool and also serve at least some useful functionality. The notification sounds and ringtones the phone comes with are matched to the lights to make for some pretty cool light patterns when you get a call or a notification. It's also possible to add your own sounds and the phone will then interpret the audio and blink the lights to match. But while this does work well for the lights, I find it a lot less satisfying than the preloaded ones because those also give you matching haptic feedback through the high quality vibration motor. So you can not only see the lights but also feel which parts of the phone light up through a tactile thump. Your own ringtone will just make the whole thing vibrate like normal. I do have to say though that in practice I did not make use of this feature that much. The Phone 1 does of course also have an always-on display, and that actually shows you more info like the time, the weather, or what notifications you have, instead of just a small flash when a new one comes in. So I didn't actually put the phone face down that often in the end. What you can do though is pair the glyph to silent mode, so every time you put the phone face down it just lights up the back for calls notifications, and the phone doesn't vibrate or make sounds. That might be a useful feature for some, though I prefer having my phone silent all the time and just looking at the AOD from time to time when I want to know what's going on. The lights do get quite bright by the way. What I would like though is for them to use the ambient light sensor in the same way the display does for brightness control. For now you can just adjust them manually, which will either mean they are too dark in bright sunlight or too bright in a dark room. Or both if you put the slider in the middle. Finishing up with the design, the phone is only IP53 rated and not IP68, which I think is a bummer because it just means that more than an accidental splash will probably kill it. And maybe this isn't possible due to some kind of intellectual property infringement or so, but I would actually really like if the phone was actually the same size as an iPhone 13 Pro Max. It already looks so similar, and similar dimensions would have enabled you to use the wide array of cases available for iPhones, but unfortunately it's off by a few millimeters, so that doesn't work. The screen of the Nothing Phone 1 is a 6.55-inch 120Hz OLED panel, so basically the same screen as a OnePlus 9 or something similar. For the price, this is a really good panel. The screen is sharp, bright and colorful. It's not an LTPO panel, meaning it cannot dynamically ramp up and down the refresh rate to save power, but the smooth experience is still there. What is a bit unfortunate is that the speakers don't really match the display quality. At least the upper one in the earpiece is quite poor, so the stereo separation isn't great. The phone does come with a pre-applied screen protector by the way, but it's only a low quality plastic one, so I tore it off after a coin in my pocket completely obliterated it. As you're probably well aware, the Nothing Phone doesn't have the highest end Snapdragon chip, but only comes with a mid-tier Snapdragon 778G+. In practice, the chip itself isn't really a big issue though. The phone does feel smooth and doesn't really experience any big hiccups. In the beginning I did notice though that the phone did not feel as smooth as some other phones with a screen with 120Hz or more and the same chip, like the Moto Edge 30 for example. At least these performance issues have largely been ironed out with a software update about 2 weeks into my testing though. Apart from the micro stutters while scrolling that made the phone feel less smooth than it could, I also had bigger issues that did impact the user experience significantly more. I for example had the phone just refuse to launch apps sometimes, meaning opening any app would just go to a black screen. That could only be resolved by restarting the whole phone. Fortunately, since the latest update, that did not happen to me anymore, which does give me some confidence that the software will get more and more polished over time. Though some problems like the phone just randomly waking up the screen in your pocket or the inconsistent face unlock prevail. Nothing does commit to 3 years of software updates plus another year of security patches, so there is some time for them to improve the software further. Apart from some issues, Nothing OS based on Android 12 is a pretty good Android skin though. It's really close to stock, quite similar to what Oxygen OS used to be in the past. In fact, the only additions are some aesthetic tweaks to the fonts, the extra section in the settings to change the settings for the glyph, and the camera and voice recorder apps. Everything else is completely stock. Though some settings could be more accessible, I think. The always on display is turned on by selecting Always Show Basic Info of Lock Screen, and changing the app grid on the home screen can only be done in settings under Wallpaper and Style and not in the launcher itself. I like their minimalist approach though, as it means the phone has all the software features you need without any bloatware whatsoever. The Nothing phone's camera isn't groundbreaking, but it also isn't as bad as you might expect from a new company that isn't that good at polished software. In fact, I would say the camera is better than the similarly priced Moto Edge 30, which does have a company with a lot more experience behind it, though admittedly one that isn't known for making good cameras. I do like the main camera in daylight, but it's hard to create a camera that takes bad pictures in good light. The colors are nice, HDR works well, and the color profile especially makes things like food look very tasty. This does remind me a lot of OnePlus's camera processing before the Hasselblad cooperation, which makes sense I guess. The phone does sometimes overexpose, but not too much. The ultra-wide camera is less capable than the main one to the point where it's noticeable, especially in terms of dynamic range, but it still takes good pictures for the price and is way better than the 8-megapixel ultra-wides other phones at this price feature. What I was surprised by is the night mode. Even without it, the camera takes quite good pictures at night that are sharp and retain a lot of color. And the night mode just makes that even better with nice and bright images with a lot of detail. But because the camera already manages bad lighting so well without the night mode, you can actually choose if you want a darker or a brighter look to your night pictures. The selfie camera is also good, I have no complaints there. Contrary to what the website might make you believe, the Phone 1 only records 4K at up to 30 FPS. But the video stabilization is very smooth and even action shots look quite nice. Overall, this camera definitely punches above its weight class and won't disappoint you with inconsistent or even bad results. It's not a flagship camera that will wow you, but it's way more than what I would have expected from a first attempt. Battery life on the Nothing Phone 1 has been a bit of a miss at first and then turned quite okay. I did get through a full day most of the time, but sometimes I did also have to charge it before the day was over, and that's with a 4500 mAh battery. The phone also sometimes uses a huge amount of battery when idle, up to 20% overnight. This doesn't happen all the time and it did get better with the latest update as well, but to me this does seem like another software issue that does still need resolving. Charging really isn't that fast at 33 watts. It does go to 50% quite quickly in about half an hour, but charging to full takes over a full hour and that's just not state of the art anymore. The phone does also get quite hot when charging sometimes, another one of those software issues. It does use the USB PD standard to charge though, and together with a mere 33 watts, that means that a cheaper 30-watt brick from Amazon will serve you just as well as the 45-watt brick Nothing sells for 35 euros. Because of course, there's no brick in the box. At least there's wireless charging with 15 watts, which is quite rare for a mid-range device. I'm quite a fan of the Nothing Phone 1. You do get a device with a very unique design, a great screen, and some features like the uniform bezels or wireless charging that make it seem much more expensive than it is. Nothing is a new startup company, so you wouldn't expect them to deliver a product that is as mature as one from top-tier manufacturers on their first attempt. And the phone did have quite some software issues at first, some of which do still persist. But how quickly at least some of them were resolved makes me hopeful that Nothing is quite dedicated to keep on improving, which is especially still needed when it comes to the battery. The hype around the Nothing Phone 1 is obviously quite high, and I do think that some of that is justified. It truly is a phone that is finally really interesting again from just looking at the hardware. That is also warranted by the fact that this is one of my longest phone reviews ever. But obviously Carl Pei is also a marketing genius that knows how to build more hype around a product than it might actually deserve. And the convoluted pre-order process that left people without the discounts they were promised, together with the software that feels a bit rushed, just leaves a bit of a bad taste. If you want to buy this phone, look through that hype and know that you get a good piece of hardware for the price, with a great screen, good performance and a good camera, but one that does still have some software quirks to be worked out. For a first phone, the Nothing Phone 1 really did surprise me in actually being a good piece of hardware, but you do have to be able to live with software that isn't fully polished now and that might or might not get better in the future. Is it worth the price? For enthusiasts, probably. but until the software is fixed, I just can't recommend it to regular consumers. If you enjoyed this video, you know which buttons to press, and don't forget to press that follow button on Twitter. I'm Brian, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.